Hello everybody, welcome back to Contemplative Knitting with Julie Sikora. And today I have a reluctant co-host who I've negotiated with a piece of cheese to make an appearance. Here, I'm going to take the camera so you can see our co-host. There she is. You want to have a bite of the cheese? She's very ladylike. This is Callie, the Afghan Hound, who is more of a cat than a dog. Afghans are very independent. They require a lot of maintenance. You can tell, you can see her hair, and it is actually hair, it's not fur. So they have hair like humans and they have to be groomed. She's kind of a runt. She's about 71 pounds. And we keep her hair kind of short. It's a little curly. But Afghans are sight hounds. They can run like 30 miles an hour. They are very hard to train. They are more like a cat than a dog, hence the cheese, because she'll come if she feels like it. Right, girl? She's very polite. Yeah. But she is my constant companion in my little hobby room, one of the bedrooms I've taken over for the boys. And I just thought you'd get a kick out of seeing her because she's a pretty girl. People say, oh, she's such a pretty dog. So that's my co-host, Callie. You can see I'm wearing shorts, but I have a completed finished object, which is this Isla cardigan that I have been working on for, well, it's been sitting in my whips is what I should say. Haven't been working on it. Obviously, I would have gotten done, but I bought this yarn back, I think in 2015 in New Zealand, and I didn't know what to do with it. I had hoped I'd bought a sweaters quantity, which I in fact did. And then I got this book, which I've talked about on prior podcasts, Magpies, Home Buddies, and Nomads. And this cardigan was on the cover and uses the identical yarn that I had bought in New Zealand. So I did complete it. You can see it fits really well. It has a kind of like a puff sleeve, and this is a twisted rib, kind of 3/4 length sleeves, and it's super soft. I mean, just heavenly to wear, just really incredibly soft. It's got tabs, so the back actually comes to this point, and there's tabs, and it's kind of clearer in this picture. You can see the tabs that come over from the back, and then the front is this part, and then there's a set-in sleeve that you gather in to make it. And I think she's got a little negative ease here. I do not. I made it so that it fits beautifully. I happen to have black buttons. I will turn around, even though I'm not going to see how well it looks, but you can see the back. I'm very happy with this. It took, I don't know, I got it, the twisted rib took forever. I mean, it was brutal. It took weeks and weeks and weeks, and there's a lot of twisted rib on the sweater. So I think I saw on Facebook somebody put up, it took me 12 years to do the twisted rib and 2 months to finish the stockinette, which is very true, because this is knit flat. So when you do the knit row, so you knit behind the stitch, and then when you do the purl side of the twisted rib, you have to knit in the back loop of the purl stitch. So there's one stitch that's sort of twisted. And so you have to remember what row you're on. Is this a knit row or a purl row for that particular twisted stitch? And it's a 1x1, so it's time consuming. You can't get a rhythm going when you're flipping your yarn back and forth and you have to go in the back of the stitch. It's just very, very time consuming. So my Isla Cardi done. I do have some other finished objects, although I haven't finished them in the recent past. I've finished them a while back, but I thought I would show them on this podcast, and one of them is the Ranunculus sweater behind me. And this sweater, I bought the yarn in the Netherlands at Stephen and Penelope's, and it's gleam lace, which is the fingering, the light fingering, in the color blush. And then, and what gleam lace is, it's fingering, but it's 55% superwash blue faced Leicester wool and 45% silk. And then for the mohair piece, I used Kama Rose in the color Gamma Rosa. And I love the combination. And it's also very soft, very drapey. And I put it on my dress form, which I bought after watching, I don't know what season of Project Runway, where I convinced myself that if only I had a dress form, I could do a couture gown in 3 days like they do in that show. So next thing I know, my fingers hovering over the order button and I got myself a dress form. But I'm kind of happy I got it because it's fun to use to display things, and also when you're needing to hem a dress or something. So I actually wanted this kind of sweater to layer over a dress, and I'm going to give you a close-up of my ranunculus so you can see the lace part and the top part. I just love that pattern. It's just really beautiful. I can see why so many people have made this. I had to start over once. I'm not sure what I did wrong, but I had a whole bad stitch count, and so I did have to start over. But you know, it's light, it's fluffy, and I have layered it over a dress that is a work in progress that I'm making from a McCall's pattern, which I'll show you in a second. I found this silk at So Green, which is our store near Rochester, where people take their items that they're not going to use, like extra fabric, and I just thought it was really a fun kind of pattern, and it's very drapey and silky and just going to be a beautiful dress. And it's got kind of a full, I haven't hemmed it yet, so I have to finish off the sleeves here and the neck, but I've sewed it together. So let me show you the pattern. This is a little added extra for you people who do like to sew, and it is this McCall's pattern, and it does, you can get there are sleeves that come with it. It is McCall's 7407. 7407. So it's sort of a swing dress, and so I started working on that. So that's kind of a sewing work in progress with a finished ranunculus. So if you haven't done the ranunculus, there's 7,000 people who have done the ranunculus. I would heartily recommend it if you like to knit. There are instructional videos that come with it that the designer does, and she's Japanese, so I'm not sure if she doesn't speak English or whatever. Of course, as English speaking people, we shouldn't expect other people to speak our own language, but she does them silently, so it's really cool. I mean, you just kind of watch, and you're watching this video in silence, and she makes it very plain what to do. So it's a great thing to try. Now, I had leftover yarn from that, and I didn't quite know. I just didn't want to not use it because it is such beautiful yarn. So I made the Evening Dew hat out of it. Evening Dew is the name of the pattern. I found it on Ravelry, and it's sort of an all-over pattern. You can see all over lace kind of pattern, and you know, it's probably not something I'm going to wear with the ranunculus, but it's kind of like a really nice spring hat that you know, you can wear when you just kind of want a little something to cover your ears, but not a big heavy wool hat. Maybe in the wind, you know, it's just a little bit. So it's very soft. Um, and it was so much fun to knit, and it used up the rest of my yarn. So very, very, very fun pattern. So that's my ranunculus from a while ago. A little work in progress, my completed Isla Cardi. Now I do have another finished object, which is an interesting story. I haven't woven in the ends, but I did finish knitting it, and I did kind of, it's together. But I went to a yarn store in Florida a long time ago, and I find yarn stores in the South very interesting because it's not like people are using a lot of wools and heavy yarns to knit big sweaters because it's Florida. So I'm always very curious to go into those kinds of yarn stores and see what are they doing. So I saw when I walked in the yarn store owner was in there. She had on a pair of jeans, a white camisole, and over the white camisole, she had on this beautiful blue poncho style thing, and I just loved the look. So it is this cover poncho, and it really looked good styled over like a white tank and blue jeans. And it's made from a ribbon yarn, which is called Ripple from Taki Yarns. And the color is, it's 100% cotton. And the color, they have a dye lot. I think but it's just, there's no name. It's 036. So it's 100% cotton, and it's this ribbony like yarn with different widths, and it's very different to knit with. So I started this poncho, and I was really excited about it because I got the same stuff to style it with, so I'm just going to imitate what I saw in this woman. And then when I was going through all my knitting stuff, and I've got all these whips that I haven't finished, I realized that I've lost this pattern, this book. I could not find it to save my life. But I couldn't bear to throw it out because I had done all this knitting on it, and I wanted to finish it. So I'm going through. It takes me several iterations to clear out my clutter. So I'm going through like a third iteration on stuff, and I found the book in between some other books that I had never really separated, and I was like, yes. So I started knitting on that right away, and I finished it. And here it is. It is, there is a pattern to it. So it's like a 6-row pattern. And there's the hole in the middle, and you keep knitting. So you cast off, and then you cast back on, and that's how you make the poncho. And there it is. You can see how this kind of cotton yarn whips up. And I got this kind of poncho deal, which will look great over something white to show through, and with blue jeans. So I was very happy to kind of realize a dream I had a long time ago in this store in Florida. Got one skein left over. I think it took 5 or 6 skeins. I'm not quite sure, but I did also make a t-shirt out of this stuff, which I'll show you next time. So that's another whip out of my closet, finished, although I do have to weave in the ends, and I'm not sure how to weave in these kind of ends. I mean, I think probably the best thing to do is maybe tie them off and cut them. You know, do a square knot and just cut, because they aren't going to stay in, you know, if you try and weave them in the normal way. So maybe I will do that next. What else did I want to show you? Oh, the last time I showed you, I'd made this storm shawl. And what I didn't show you, which I've forgotten to get, so here's that storm shawl. This is a Hohi Locatelli pattern, and it's a one skein fingering weight yarn, and I just loved how that came out. But what I did want to show you is another shawl that a lot of people have made, and I wanted to recommend it because it's a blast. I mean, I think I love the storm shawl that Hohi did. I like the little picot edging that is on it, and it's kind of its half moon shape. So I did also make the lightweight hipster shawl, and I chose as my yarn a skein of Swanky Sock from Magpie Fibers, 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 400 yards, in the color Painted Black, because I did like Hohi's color choice for the lightweight hipster, which it's called London Rain. It has some not just white and black, but it's got some other colors in it, like blue and I think a kind of a caramel color. So this is so much fun. It's got like some of those big slip stitches parts like the storm shawl, but it also, I think I'm showing you the wrong side, it also has these kind of X's in it, which makes it so much fun to knit. And this little fringe at the bottom, which I think really makes it. So I wasn't quite sure how to do those X's. And fortunately for me and for the rest of us, it's a thing about her stuff. I can't quite tell which is the right side. I think this is the correct side you'd wear out. Is that somebody made a video on how to do those X's. So after I couldn't quite figure it out reading the directions, but after I saw the video that someone made, it was super clear, and it's on Ravelry, and easy to find the help for that. And once I saw the video, I reread the directions. I thought, oh, of course. I mean, everything seems so obvious. I'm a visual learner, and once somebody shows me, I'm good to go. And so fortunately for me, somebody did that because other people had questions about how to do it, but I just love the lace and the X's and the little fringe. I did get nervous, and when I got sort of down to here, I'm never quite sure. I didn't want to play yarn chicken because I really wanted the fringe. So I stopped and I cut the fringe. The reason I didn't do it in the beginning is because the fringe needs to be like around every X. So I didn't know how many X's I was going to have at the bottom of this thing. So I didn't know how much fringe to cut. So once I got through that row where these bottom X's are, then I cut the fringe, and then I continued knitting this very last section so that I knew I would have enough yarn. So, because fringe uses a lot of yarn, but I just love this. It's a kind of a cool size. I'm headed to Texas this week to go to San Antonio. Of course, it's going to be super hot, but there's air conditioning. So I thought, well, this is something I can pack and wear just around my shoulders in the air conditioning. So I will take that with me to Texas. Now, continuing on with knitting, I have 2 works in progress to show you. One, which I'm a little nervous about, I'm just going to bend over here to get it, is the Miserina sweater, which I've just kind of started. So here's the neck, and then the lace, and then I've started the color work. So I'm sure when I block it out, it'll be easier to see the lace. And the cool thing about this is there's lace and then there's cables. Cables are in between the color work. So you can kind of see the cable there. See the cable coming down. This is the beginning of the color work. I put markers, so there's there's stitches here for the cables in between these two markers, and then the longer set of markers are for where the color work happens, because there's increases going on all the time, of course, because we're going down the yoke. Now you can maybe see that cable a little better. It's really cool. I mean, I have not done something that has had lace and cables in it, and so this has been you know, fun to do. And I love the color contrast. Now, Tracy from the Grocery Girls had made one, I think that was kind of a charcoal with a hot pink. And I'm a blue person all the way. So I got these two skeins of yarn at Rhinebeck and Cozy Color Works. It's hand-dyed superwash merino, 550 yards, fingering weight. And the blue is navy, and the hot pink is called raspberries, same from Colorworks. So yeah, it's fun to do. I think I've had to tink back once or twice because it calls for increases on both sides of like the color work, and I would increase the first stitch but not the one before the next marker, so I've caught myself. So it's fun to knit. I like color work. I like cable. It's definitely not TV knitting. Definitely not TV knitting. I always like to have one active project that's more of a challenge and then an active project that is more mindless. So my mindless project is something that I've had works in progress for a long time, and it is a Shibui knit pattern, the Virga from Shibui Knits. This is a black and white photo of it, and I was in Vermont. I was in a store and I saw their yarn and I thought, oh God, I really want to knit something from that. So I did get the yarn, and the cool thing is there's two types of yarn. There's this, which is sort of the fingering weight yarn, and this is called Lunar. So it's Shibui Knits Lunar, and I don't. They have got a little poem in the back. A cricket sings, moonlight reveals blossoms before dewfall. So this is extra fine merino, 60% extra fine merino, and 40% mulberry silk in the color Twilight. So it's sort of a very light blue, which it seems to be coming across that way. And then there is this, which, let me read you the poem. Lights in the distance, glowing halos intertwined, I walk out my front door. This is called Tweed Silk Cloud. It is 65% silk and 30% kid mohair, and the color is Twilight. So here's my swatch, so you can see. This is one strand of Lunar and one strand of the mohair. So it's a very interesting construction. I have one sleeve done. You start with the sleeves and you knit them. So this is the one I have done. So the cuff has got you use two strands of the Lunar. Then you switch to one strand of the Lunar and one strand of the mohair. It's a little wrinkled from being in the bag. And you knit in the round, and then you get to a point where you then are knitting back and forth, which I'm going to join with the other sleeve somehow. And then there's a collar, and so I've done this one. I am doing the second one, second sleeve. So it's just, right now I'm going around and around, and I'm increasing every other row. So this is my TV knitting. And I think it's going to be, I mean, it's such a different construction that it'll be interesting. I plan on taking it on the plane, but I really feel like I have to take the other sleeve just to make sure I'm getting them to match. And so it's going to take up a lot of room as a result. But that and the Miserina I plan on taking on my trip on the plane. Whew. So I'm hoping to get those two things done in the near future, the Miserina. But summer is coming. Summer was here the past couple of days in upstate New York. We had 80-degree weather. Summer is a super busy time for us. We have 5 sons. It's a combined marriage. So between us, we have 5 sons and 12 grandchildren and 1 on the way. And they all sort of come here because we live on Lake Ontario, and the kids really enjoy coming and spending time here in the summer. So there's a lot of grandkid time, which I love and adore, and not a lot, super lot of knitting time. So kind of before that onslaught, before school lets out and kids are around all the time, I hope to finish up those projects and again do another podcast. I'm trying to do one once a month. So for those of you who are here just for the knitting, I have one more thing to show anyone who's also into numerous kinds of fiber kind of hobbies. I have embarked on making a jelly roll rug with a jelly roll. And I've had this forever in my, this is a big fat mess right now. But it's such a cool jelly roll. It's vegetables and it's fruit, and I have sewn all these strips together. That's probably the only one that's not super even. And my next step is to trim the back. So I've gotten all the jelly rolls sewed together. Now I got to go through and trim all of those backs. Let's see. So yeah, there's even onions. Isn't it cool? So eventually, so that's the next step, is to kind of go through, trim the backs. Then I have these rolls of batting. Let's see, the lemon, strawberry, corn. Here's my mess. Go through and trim the backs, and then we put the batting in the middle and crunch them up with the Wonder Clips, and then sew it, around and around. And so my goal is to get a rug to put in front of the sink, either in my kitchen or my RV. And I think it depends on how good it looks, whether it's relegated to the RV or in the kitchen. We have an RV that we use, Class A motorhome, that we go around and visit the grandkids with. So we have our own place to stay, and we can keep our own food, and it's like bringing your house with you. And it is like bringing your house with you as we lumber down the driveway. And it also lets us bring the Afghan Hound to places where she wouldn't normally be allowed to go. She's sacked out now after her debut in my podcast. So that's what's online, and we'll see what else happens between now and the next time. So I hope you enjoyed these podcasts, and feel free to subscribe so you know when they're coming. I also write a blog, which I do once a week, and every day during Lent and Advent. I am an Episcopal priest. I hate to sometimes tell people that because people think I'm just going to talk about religion, but I'm really talking about my hobby. And I do use my knitting to for contemplative prayer. So I just sit and knit, and the knitting keeps me in the present moment, keeps me away from distracting thoughts, and it's just a way of my spending time with God. So that's where the contemplative knitting comes from. And I did write a book on that practice, which you can see up there, called Contemplative Knitting. It's a book about how to use knitting to start a prayer practice, not about knitting per se, but it's got a lot of stories about knitters and how knitting is a metaphor for life. So more on that as the all the different podcasts continue. So thanks again for joining me. See my ranunculus and my little sewing project. I used to sew, but it's been a long time, so I'm starting slow, starting with easy projects. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and I appreciate your support. Bye.